It's Max here. I just finished reading Raising a Rare Girl by Heather Lanier, if that's how you pronounce it. Um, so this is my first book review. Forgive me for being an amateur. I hope you enjoy. So I'm just gonna scroll through this for a second, and I'm just gonna tell you what I enjoyed about it and kind of my overview. So background, this story, um, this little description here says, award-winning writer Heather Lanier's memoir about raising a child with a rare syndrome, defying the tyranny of normal, and embracing parenthood as a spiritual practice that breaks us open in the best of ways. That's what this book is about. And a little background about me, I am autistic, I believe undiagnosed ADHD. I also struggle with anxiety and some really bad insomnia, and I've struggled with depression for several years, as well as single event PTSD and chronic event continual complex PTSD, which is what we refer to as CPTSD. Um, this book made me cry. It was so good. Um, I wasn't really super interested in it when I first started reading. I got this from my sister. She was moving and was giving away her books, some of them. And I came to her house and I picked up a bunch of books that I thought would be at least decent to read. And I thought, okay, I like the cover, it looks cool. And one day I just picked it up, and it's one of the best ideas I had that day, probably. It goes through the story of a woman and her husband, um, and it's memoir, so it's a true story. It's actually happened. And this woman, she has her baby, and when the baby's born, she discovers that her baby girl, whose name is Fiona, probably has some sort of syndrome. She's abnormal. And it talks about her journey of being a mom. And I don't have any kids myself, but I have 12 nieces and nephews, and I can definitely understand the struggle of watching someone grow up with something that's difficult for them, and difficult for other people as well. So, say in the first chapter, she begins to talk about a super baby. I'll read you for a few sentences. Chapter 1. When I was pregnant, I tried to make a super baby. I didn't realize I was doing this. I thought I'd long ago shed the theory that a body could be made perfect. But looking back, my goal was clear. I swallowed capsules of mercury-free DHA to help grow my super baby's brain. I filled my grocery cart with organic fruits and veggies, letting our monthly food bill consume a quarter of our income. Of course, I followed the medical advice standard for women of my generation. I avoided soft cheeses and cold cuts, and I microwaved my smoked turkey slices so they curled into crispy-edged frisbees. But I went above and beyond. And then she goes on to discuss all the different ways that she tried to make her body the best place that it could be for a baby growing inside it. And then, spoiler alert, she learns that the chromosome in her baby's body wasn't something that she could have controlled. And she talks about that as well. So that's an interesting idea, the idea of a super baby and your general expectations for your children, or possibly even for other children. And she talks about that as well, how other people treat her daughter and treat her because of her daughter. Very interesting. So I'm going to go to chapter 2. See if I can find chapter 2 real quick. Okay. I'll read you a few sentences and we'll talk about it. Chapter 2. As a kid trying to fall asleep at night, I used to watch a ceiling fan spin. Because it was directly above my head, and because it spun with a clanking violence, I worried it would spiral off and cut me. I confessed my fears once to my mother and stepfather, figuring they'd reassure me that a ceiling fan would never do such a thing, that the bolts in the unit were made of X material and the fan itself was anchored with Y gadget, built to withstand Z weight and centrifugal force. My stepfather, a man who resembled Jack Nicholson without the devilishly pointy eyebrows, pressed his thin lips together in concern. My mother seemed to know what he was thinking. You know, she said, if you believe things badly enough, you can make them happen. That is super interesting. And they talk about a little bit about Christianity, a little bit about some of other beliefs, and how some versions of belief uh, agree with that. If you believe things badly enough, you can make them happen. Something that I think about pretty frequently is Abraham Lincoln, I think it was, saying, whether you think you can or not, you're probably right. So if you think you can do something, there's a better chance that you'll be able to do it. If you think you can't do something, there's a better chance that you won't be able to do it. Sort of a placebo effect, almost. I don't know if there's another word for that idea. You'll have to let me know in the comments, but yeah, that's worth thinking about. And it goes through so many different ideas. Just okay, so the syndrome that she ended up being diagnosed with was Wolf-Hirschhorn syndrome, which they refer to as WHS for short. Apparently Wolf, or whoever it was that identified the syndrome at first and kind of like invented the diagnosis of it, wasn't the best person. So some people like to call it other things, like 4p minus is another way of explaining it due to like the chromosomes in the body. I'm not really sure how all of it works because I've never dealt with this myself. It's incredibly rare. But yeah, so it talks a lot about her physical health, Fiona's physical health, and the work that needs to be done to keep her growing. And basically the way it works, it makes her small, and makes it hard for her to do a lot of things. And this book only goes from like ages 0 to 7 years old in the epilogue. The epilogue's pretty short. But yeah. So it talks about her cognitive health, her physical health, her emotional health, and making sure she's getting the right amount of connection with people and isn't being influenced too badly by other people's judgments of her as a kid. And I really just admire Heather, the writer, because she tries so hard to help her daughter grow, not because she thinks it will make her a more valuable human being, but because she loves her daughter and wants her to grow and to be able to have autonomy and freedom and give her more opportunities in life. But she doesn't do it to say, oh, if you don't grow enough, you won't be worth anything. Not at all. And she explicitly explains in this book that she sees how the rest of culture doesn't do that. They kind of just assume that if you don't succeed to grow out of your disability, then it was never a good thing and it wasn't okay, and that you as a person are not worth the same as somebody else who can do the things that you can't. There's always this pressure, I've experienced this as well, to become someone or something other than what you are, that is supposedly higher, better, faster, stronger than what you are today. People say progress, just keep making progress, keep trying. As long as you're growing a little bit, then you're okay. But What about the people who know for a fact that they're not going to grow in certain areas? People who, have terminal cancer and know that they're not going to get better. People who are paralyzed from the waist down and will never be able to walk again if they ever walked in the first place. People who cannot get better. And sometimes people confuse the permanence of physical illnesses and conditions as more valid or more permanent than the permanent mental, emotional, or cognitive sides of a person. They think, oh, if it's not physical, that means you can fix it. If it's in your head, we can just get those thoughts out of your head. If you're mentally ill, you can just change the way you think. If you're emotionally unwell, you can just feel better later. If you're cognitively stuck, then you can just try something different and get better. But she talks in this book about how sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you can't get there, and that is perfectly okay. So for those who need to hear that, if you are stuck and you do not see yourself improving in every area of your life, then that's okay. I would say that the thing to focus on, not because you have to, but because it might be better for you on the inside of your body, the way you feel about yourself, to accept that you might not get to all the places that people thought you'd get to. So yeah. And let's see. In chapter, see what chapter is this? Chapter 8. Very interesting notes on Christianity. In the beginning of chapter 8, in reference to Fiona, it says, "She turned 1. Family and friends drove to Ohio. I put her in a white cotton dress, and her father drizzled holy water over her forehead in baptism, and Mother Jackie gave a sermon. As we soak her in God's love and healing grace today, we invoke the Holy Spirit, praying with God that as Fiona grows, she will be part of the Spirit's work, part of the transforming of this world in all our lives." We said amen. Afterward, we crowded a dozen extra people into our rented Cape Cod and donned party hats and ate off of watermelon-shaped plates. We stuck a candle into a plastic container of baby carrots because it was our girl's favorite food. We sang happy birthday. We blew the candle out for her. I wished she would be who she would be. So, Heather, the mom, she's not saying that her understanding of Christianity is pushing her to expect anything specific out of her daughter. She's looking for almost like a sense of fate. I'm sorry if I misspeak for her, but I'm just going off the interpretation of what I read. It seems as though she's looking for her daughter to bloom into this sort of destined sense of self. And she is letting go of not just what her daughter would be physically, but what her daughter would be spiritually or just in the soul of who she is. And obviously, her daughter being only a little one at the time, she hasn't met all the versions of her daughter that her daughter will be. Fiona could grow up to be all sorts of things. Excuse me. And I honestly just agree with this so much. It feels so gentle and comforting to me. I definitely grew up with some good parts of Christianity and some bad parts of Christianity. I would say one good thing is that I came to understand that the world is a lot bigger than just me and my little world, my family, my friends. There's an unspoken bigness to the universe that we live in. One bad thing is that there were a lot of, again, expectations and kind of presupposed things about the direction that I would go in life. Being female, female-bodied. I sort of was expected to just do a lot of things and turn out a lot of certain ways. And, you know, as I'm growing up, I'm 19, I'm starting to understand myself in a way that is inclusive of Christianity, but it's also just inclusive of myself as a person, and not worrying about how well I fit with someone else's idea of belief. So that's interesting. And I would just want to show the excuse me, sorry. There's something like a little dust in my throat. It's right at the end of the book. Oh yeah, and here's a picture of the author. That's Heather right there. It says Heather Lanier is the author of 2 award-winning poetry chapbooks and has published essays in The Sun, Salon, Brevity, Vela, and elsewhere. A recipient of an Ohio Arts Council Individual Excellence Award and a Vermont Creation Grant. She is an assistant professor of creative nonfiction at Rowan University. Her TED Talk about raising her daughter has been viewed more than 2 million times. And she has a website called heathercurranlanier.com. I'll show you that as well. I don't know if you can see that, sorry. It's kind of hard to tell. Anyway, I hope that helps. So, right at the end of the book, there's this cute little picture of Fiona. Again, she's smaller than other kids her age would be, but I think it's cute. The lighting is terrible in here. Sorry. So, that's her. That's the mom, that's the kid. And the epilogue. I'll read you a few sentences of that as well. Fiona, age 7, sits at the dining table with Petra and 2 house guests, a 40-year-old monk and the monk's 16-year-old son. The latter are Justin's friends. That's the husband. My mother, also visiting, stands beside Fiona with a mug of coffee in hand. Sit right here, Fiona tells my mom. Sorry. My kid has the command of a chirpy drill sergeant, and she points to the seat beside her. How can my mother refuse? She sits next to her granddaughter. Mom, she calls out. I look at her. Me toast, she points to her chest. You want toast, I ask. I'm heading into the kitchen. Yes, please, she shouts. She shouts. I bring back the toast. Fiona is gulping water from a cup when I set it down. Over the years, her eyes have darkened from Tahoe blue to deep blue-gray. Gink you, she says, thank you. So she's just kind of giving a slice of life scene from how, and kind of pointing out how her daughter has transformed all of their lives and how her daughter herself has grown from birth to age 7. Other than that, I would say this book really made me love myself more. Even though I don't have that syndrome, I do have a lot of other things that I struggle with, and everyone has something that they struggle with. Even if it's not neurodivergence or a chronic condition, people don't have it easy, ever, pretty much. Unless you're in a very fortunate circumstance, but, you know, the human mind will always torment us with something, right? So, yeah, this book made me love myself more, and it made me compassionate toward people of all kinds. I think this book is just something that you need to read if you're struggling with accepting humanity in general. Really opened my heart and was just relaxing for me to read, and just gave me a piece of healing that I didn't really expect out of a book. It's not like I say, okay, I'm going to read this book and then I'm going to feel better about myself. I'm going to feel better about my life in the world. No, but this book did that anyway. And other self-discovery efforts that I do on a daily basis have also helped with that. But definitely read more books in general. Read this book, Raising a Rare Girl, Heather Lanier. and I will see you next time. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. Share it with someone if you thought that they would benefit from it, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.